Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Jack Hagel. The next chancellor at the University of North Carolina has to check a lot of boxes. They have to be an academic with a devotion to student success and have a commitment to research. But can they raise $1 billion? WRAL investigative reporter Brian Murphy reports that fundraising skills might be the most important trait for a new chancellor, and he joins us now to tell us why. Brian, good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Brian, a UNC search committee is currently looking for a new permanent chancellor. What kind of leader are they looking for?
Well, I joked with the chair of the search committee that they're looking for a unicorn. They're looking for someone that, has a deep commitment to the public mission of UNC with academic chops and humility, and they want someone who will preserve academic freedom. They want someone who can operate the books and make sure the university is, fiscally sound. And they also want someone who can wine and dine donors to the tune of maybe $1 billion a year.
$1 billion sounds like an awful lot, is it?
Well, I thought so. I mean, to you and me, it is an awful lot. But in this academic sense, at a giant university like UNC, it's not really. I mean, the university raised over $5 billion during a 5-year campaign for Carolina that ended in December of 2022. And that sort of sets a baseline now for what their fundraising will be like going forward. The reason this is a story and the reason we're talking about it is during the search committee meeting in June, one of the trustees, she's on the search committee, she's also a trustee with the Board of Trustees, her name is Jen Lloyd, suggested that fundraising needs to be at the top of the list for what they're looking for. That this person the next chancellor needs to know that they will be expected to raise $1 billion a year. I talked to Holden Thorpe, who had the job from 2008 to 2013, which over a decade ago. He said when he was chancellor, he had to raise $250 million a year. So in a decade, that's increased fourfold. But he says $1 billion at a university like North Carolina sounds like a pretty reasonable number.
Why do they need to raise so much?
That's a great question, and I haven't gotten a great answer on that. But think about all the things that a university is associated with. Primarily research. I mean, that is a huge part of why they have to raise money. Secondly, faculty salaries. They get a lot of money from the state government, over $660 million. A lot of that goes to salaries. A lot of it goes to buildings. A lot of it goes to operations that it takes to run a giant university. But they're competing with lots of universities for these salaries. So they need to make sure there's enough funding for salaries, particularly on the faculty side. They're also looking at programmatic expansion. So the expansion of some of their academic programs. We haven't even talked about athletics, but certainly a lot of money goes to that. So there are a lot of needs. One of the other big categories is accessibility. They want to make sure that students deserving students from all over the state, all over the country, possibly all over the world, have access to Carolina, and sometimes they can't afford it. And so there's a lot of money that goes into scholarships for students who need it.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear more about the search for a UNC chancellor and why fundraising plays such a big role. Stick around. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with WRAL investigative reporter Brian Murphy about the search for a UNC chancellor. Brian, before the break, you talked about the need for the next UNC chancellor to raise $1 billion every year. The money that they're raising, is that any different than the money that, say, athletics boosters are raising? Help me understand kind of how that works.
Yeah, in many cases it is different. Athletic boosters are raising money for all kinds of things, and particularly NIL at the moment. But they're building sports athletic facilities or coaches' buyouts or coaching salaries. What I found in research for the story is that a lot of these campaigns that they have, the dollars are earmarked for certain things. So they're earmarked for certain programs, or they go into the endowment, and only a certain percentage of money from the endowment can come into each year's budget. So I had a lot of people say, $1 billion, their budget is $4.2 billion. Where's all that money going? Well, a lot of it is going into the endowment, which helps, finance future spending by the university. A lot of it's going directly to programs that they find are important, or some faculty that they want to keep. So it really is a complex thing. And what I found in talking to this, lots of people about this, is that the chancellor, in a lot of cases, is the closer. That deans and provosts have to do a lot of this work. The University Development Office does a lot, but if you're going to hand over a check, and we're talking serious money here, somewhere $10 million to $100 million, some of these gifts are, they want to know that the chancellor's on board with their vision for that money as well.
Universities have always had to raise some amount of money, but this big goal that they have to hit every year, does that change the type of applicant for this type of job? I'm just not picturing a tweed-blazered professor going out there and making it rain.
Yeah, that's why I talked about kind of a unicorn. I mean, you want someone who has skill sets that transfer across many different departments, but I mean, Holden Thorpe is someone he edits science magazines now, science journals. One of the reasons he got tapped to be from interim to the chancellorship is that he was very successful at raising money in his college. And so I don't know that this particularly wipes out an entire class of people who might be interested in the job. I think people who want these types of positions have, in order to move up the ladder, have had to demonstrate that they are able to raise lots and lots of money. It's just sort of a prerequisite for getting into any of these positions at the dean level, at the provost level, at the associate chancellor level, and then obviously at the chancellor level.
Now, Lee Roberts is the interim chancellor. Does he have fundraising chops? Is he a contender for the permanent job? Does he even want it?
Yeah, anyone who applies is confidential. So even though the search committee, may have received applications already, that is all confidential. They won't let us know who's applied. We'll see if they even tell us how many people have applied. But Lee Roberts does have a private finance background. He's also, worked with money, which is not quite the same thing as raising money. He was budget director for Governor Pat McCrory. He has done some private investment work, and so you would think he at least has access to the types of people who have the type of money that they can give to $1 billion campaign or $1 billion annually. I don't know. The question is, who connects with donors? Can you share your vision for the university, or can you adapt your vision for the university to meet what the donor is looking for? I talked with one expert who said that, loyalty giving, which is, hey, I went to Carolina. You guys are asking for $100 a year. Sure. Yeah, I'll do it. Or $25 a month or whatever. That kind of giving, while important, is so the chancellor doesn't get involved at that level. What we're talking about are people who have lots and lots of money, and we know that there's the wealthy have a lot of money, maybe more money than they've ever had in the history of our country. And they're willing to write these huge checks, but they want something for it. And they don't want a cash payment. They don't want a dividend, but they want to see that their money is really going to their vision or going to the program that they want it to go to. And so I think the chancellor then has to be able to connect with people. I think you can find that type of person, in many different walks of life. Lee Roberts has obviously been very successful in his chosen endeavors. And so I would imagine, he has that skill.
What is the market for qualified candidates these days? And we just talked about, how it might change the type of candidate, but are there a lot of people who actually want these kinds of jobs? If I've got this kind of fundraising skill, why am I looking at a university? Why am I not on Wall Street?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there are lots and lots of openings all around the country for university chancellors or presidents. The top leader at universities. There are jobs open all over the place, including in the UNC system. 4 new chancellors took their roles in 2024. There are still 3 permanent jobs open, including UNC. You look across the country to the old Pac-12 schools. Many of them have openings. Carol Folt, a former chancellor at UNC, may be leaving USC. These jobs have a much quicker burnout rate. Is what the research shows. Randy Woodson is entering his 15th year at NC State. That is highly, highly unusual. We're looking at 4 or 5 year tenures for these people, in part because the job has gotten so complicated. We've talked a lot about fundraising, but the pressures that you have to deal with on the political side. We've seen all the stuff about DEI and academic freedom, protests on campus. I mean, these you're managing. To your point, you're managing a company or a corporation that has a $4 billion budget. You could do that at many, many places across the country and make an awful lot of money and maybe not have to deal with some of the things that these chancellors have to deal with. So it is interesting to see who is even interested in a position like this. And they are well compensated. Let's be honest. Kevin Guskowitz left UNC. He's making $1 million a year as the president at Michigan State. So they are not poorly paid.
So what happens next? What is the university's timeline here in finding a permanent chancellor?
Yeah, so members of the search committee said that their ambitious goal is to have someone named by the end of the year. That doesn't mean that they'll start before the end of the year, but have someone named for that position. It feels like an ambitious goal. They call it an ambitious goal. Now, other universities, North Carolina Central, for example, had an opening. They filled it within 6 months of their search committee being named. UNC is obviously a different caliber of job. Their search committee was named on February 12th. So at least 10 months they're looking at to simply have someone in place. The search committee, which is tasked with forwarding 3 or more names onto the board of trustees, which then must forward it onto the board of governors, which then has to agree with the system president, Peter Hahn's decision. So it's kind of a lengthy process, and we're just at the beginning of that. The applications are just starting to come in. The search committee will meet this week, and they have a meeting planned for August as well. So I think we're starting to see some movement on this, but still many months away from a final decision.
Well, we know you'll be watching. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
That's WRAL investigative reporter Brian Murphy. For his recent article on the search for a UNC chancellor, go to the education section of WRAL.com. I'm Jack Hagel. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.